everyone, it's Marina here from the Ingvild Bolme design team, and I'm going to share a video with y'all today on how I altered this policy envelope from my stash. And even though it's a smaller project than my norm, I still use tons of Ingvild Bolme products on this, including the chalk edgers, using them in some pretty cool ways. So what I'm doing first is I traced out my paper using the envelope to get my shapes, and I'm using the Comfort Craft Distress Tool by Ingvild Bolme. This is a staple. If you don't have this, then you're crazy, because I think every scrapbooker at least owns this tool. I mean, it's just a must-have. So it's the best for distressing everything. So I'm just being really heavy on the edges of this paper because I want it to look really old and vintage. And now I'm using the branch bark chalk edger to go all the way around, and I'm being pretty heavy-handed using the fatter end of the chalk edger to get some really good amount of ink on there. So I'm just going to do this to all of my papers. I'm not being careful about how I do it. You know, the messier the better. What I usually do, although I didn't do it on this one, is I'll spritz it after I put it on there, and it will kind of bleed into the paper and fade. But for this one, I wanted a kind of bolder look, so I just left the chalk edgers on the edges of it. And now I'm going to start trying to get my ribbon in there. I've tied it to the inside of it to keep it closed, and now what I'm going to do is use the chalk edgers to stamp on it. And these chalk edgers are so versatile, y'all. You can use them on just about anything. So I'm just adding a little piece of paper towel there so it doesn't bleed through. I'm using a Prima script stamp. It's just a tiny little script. So I thought that would be really pretty on there. And the chalk edger I'm using on the ribbon is Rock Moss. It's a beautiful, beautiful green color. I absolutely love it. And this ink is strong enough to where when I stamp on one side of it, it goes through to the bottom layer. I do go back in and do the bottom layer just a little bit in certain areas to make it heavier, but it does go all the way through, so you don't have to, you know, double stamp on both sides of the ribbon. So I'm just going to go all the way down the length of my ribbon on both sides, just stamping it so that when I tie it in a bow, it looks really pretty and gives it a lot more definition. Okay, now I'm taking one of my Del Art Shabby Chic Treasures. I love, love, love this resin. I'm taking the Teal Damask chalk edger, and I was really heavy on there and just went across it, and then I spritzed it with water, and it caused the ink to kind of move and pull in those little crevices of the resin. You guys know what I'm talking about. So it's just a really cool effect. So that's what I'm doing there, and then I'm going to use a little bit of Rub and Buff to kind of go in with gold. A chalk edger would probably work as well, but I wanted it to be kind of patina, and I didn't have a gold chalk edger at the time. So I'm just using some Rub and Buff, and it's a really pretty effect. And then I'm going back on top of that with the white chalk edger as well, just to kind of tone everything down and highlight the raised areas. So that's how I did the resin piece at the top there. And now I'm using the branch bark, the dry sand, and the pastel brown chalk edgers, 3 different shades of brown. And I'm using this on a piece of plastic, just spare packaging, but I typically just use my glass table. And what I'm doing is I just push them down a couple of times and then spray water, and it becomes almost like a paint. So what I'm doing is I'm just going around my ribbon randomly. It was just kind of too clean for the vintage feel I was going for, so I'm just going on there randomly with those browns, and the 3 of them mixed together make a really pretty softer brown, so I really like that effect. And it also made the green run just a little bit. Okay, so I'm doing it again now with the pastel brown and the dry sand, and then a little bit of the Teal Damask up there at the top. And I'm going to start painting flowers. This is a really easy way, y'all, to paint your flowers by doing this, just using water and the chalk edgers and using a paintbrush. So I'm going all the way around my flower, and I'm not paying any attention, being careful, just carelessly using the paintbrush around there. And then what I'll do is I'll use the Teal Damask color to kind of highlight just the edges of the petal to give it a really pretty two-tone brown and teal effect. Now I'm taking a stamp from my stash, and I'm using a big acrylic block for it, but you don't really have to use a huge one like that. But I'm taking the Teal Damask stamp, and I'm sorry my head gets in the shot a little bit, y'all, but I'm doing the flower on the stamp and the Teal Damask, and then I'm doing all the greenery, the florals, the foliage, like the leaves and the stems and the Rock Moss. So I'm using Teal Damask and Rock Moss, and it's just so easy, you guys. You can use as many colors as you want with your stamps, and you get this wonderful, wonderful effect. So the leaves are the green color, and the flowers are the pretty Teal Damask. So I'm going to do this over and over, just all the way around my envelope, doing the two-toned stamping job. Super, super simple, you guys. You really can't beat this. And then I'm using one with just some, kind of like a flourish, and I'm using the Rock Moss on that to kind of mimic more greenery up above that part. And then again, just doing the flowers and the tilde mask and then the rock moss on the green parts. And you don't have to really worry about cross-contaminating. If it touches a little bit, it's really not a big deal. I'm never really careful with any of my chalk edgers, and they have lasted perfectly well, and none of the color is contaminated. Okay, now I'm just playing with my elements and figuring out where I want them to go. Just kind of taking a few flower clusters that blended well. Some of those I highlighted a little bit with the chalk edgers. And I wanted to use one of these typo bulbs, so I'm just kind of playing with where I want it to go. And I do this a lot. I just kind of throw things out that I think coordinate with the project I'm doing and just kind of tuck them in and out. I did put a typo zipper up there at the top where the bow is tied as well. I didn't show that step, but that's just a really pretty typo zipper. It's one of my favorite Ingvild Bolme products. I use the zippers on every single project, seems like. And the junkyard findings as well, like the jean buttons and the special screws. I use those on everything. So I'm just placing everything down, kind of highlighting my little wooden pieces from Prima, the little leaves, with the pastel brown color, and tucking those in and out of there. And then if you spritz them with water, it just kind of spreads them out and makes it more even. These chalk edgers really blend beautifully. All you got to do is add a little bit of water. So that's basically it for my project, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions at all, just leave me a comment down below and I'll be happy to answer them. Of course, I'll link Ingvild Bolme's blog down below for you guys to go check it out and see the other ladies' wonderful work. Have a beautiful day, y'all. Bye.